Madhava, Madhava, Jai Kunja Hari. Jai Gopi Janavallabha, Jai Girivardhari, Jai Girivardhari. Krishna, Jai Braja Jai Braja Ram Tiravanathari Sundar Bihari Ram Tiravanathari Sundar Bihari Krishna Sankirtan Ki Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Ajulam Vita Bhujo Anagabhadato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Yugadharma Kalo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavotaro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gauradaya Pushpavanto Chitra Sambhotamano Vandeham Shri Rama Krishna Abhaya Charano Sabo Sukkado Paramanando Sundaro Subhavapriyo. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakunta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Anamani Hari Shri Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara ki Jai Bhakti Vinod Parivar ki Jai Gaur Bhakti Vrinda ki Jai Chandas ki Jai.
Maharaj starts his talk. I just want to formally, on behalf of the local Brighton devotees, welcome everyone to Hare Krishna Fridays.
Haribol.
Really honoured to serve here. We meet every Friday, so for many a year, and we have newcomers and seasoned devotees alike, Maharaj. And we're really happy that you've graced us with your presence, Maharaj. His name is Swami. Swami Tripurari Maharaj is a prominent disciple of Srila Prabhupada, a notable book distributor by all accounts, historically, and a big voice in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So we're really, really happy and honoured that Maharaj has graced us with this association. So welcome to Brighton, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
I'm very pleased to be here, and I've come at the invitation of some of my students, and also in connection with the publishing of my latest book. I'm an author, and I live in Northern California in the woods with 2 students, and I spend most of my time there writing, and sometimes I come out for a visit and share my thoughts. And on this occasion, I'm sharing thoughts with regard to, as I say, my recent publication. It's entitled Circle of Friends, the book that seeks to fill a gap that has developed in our sampradaya, in our lineage, over the last 500 years, with regard to the role that is a supportive role to the main flow or stream of aesthetic rapture or bhakti rasa, that concerning the romantic life of Radha and Krishna, the supportive role, which the book is about, is that of fraternal love or sakya rasa. So I've been speaking about different ways in which this fraternal love plays a significant role, both in the drama, if you will, of Krishna Lila, and inevitably the inevitable encore of Krishna Lila, that is Gaur Lila, or the Lila of Sri Chaitanya. And briefly, of course, it plays a supporting role in given that of all of the sentiments that drive the drama of Krishna Lila, that being dasya, servitude, vatsalya, parental love, sakya, fraternal love, and madhurya, romantic love. These 2, fraternal love and romantic love, they are, Swami describes as compatible with one another. Whereas vatsalya or parental love is not compatible with romantic love, it's not compatible with fraternal love. Dasya bhav, dasya ras, servitude, is neutral with regard to them. What do I mean by that? Briefly, these are considerably esoteric topics in one sense, but they're very human-based at the same time. While Krishna Lila is called, his Prakata Lila, manifest Lila, is called a Nara Lila. It means a human-like Lila. He has 2 arms instead of 4. You've got 4 arms. You say, oh my God, right? That is not how we refer to Krishna, particularly in comparison to Narayan. Narayan is overtly the personality of the Godhead, who served in awe and reverence And the love that is shared by the devotee in relation to Narayan, as beautiful as it is, we call it worship. Hmm? Worship involves an object of worship, the worshiper, and the worship that bridges the gap between the two. Hmm? It bridges the gap by way of making a bridge, but the gap remains to some extent. If I was to say that I was God, and I won't, and I'm not, but if I did foolishly, and you foolishly believe me, you might also say, oh my God, and move back a few inches, right? So Krishna, on the other hand, of course, which for good reason, our Gaudiya Vaishnav acharyas, founding acharyas, have considered him to be the source, even of God. He's really kind of God when he takes off his sunglasses as a, let's say, for example, a popular person would have to wear them in public because everybody's always coming and asking for their autograph and so on and so forth. So God, where he can be relaxed, if you will, and get closer in love to his devotees. So the difference between the reverential love and the love of Krishna, reverential love for Narayan, and the love for Krishna is that the latter has been likened, if you will, to these human forms of love, which we are familiar with. We're familiar with love and service to, for example, within school, you serve the teacher, and could bring an apple every morning and show some measure of affection and appreciation. We are familiar with parental love, most of us on both sides. We've been children, and many of us are mothers and fathers. Maybe some of us are grandmothers and grandfathers and so forth. And of course, we have acquaintance with fraternal love, right? Never get enough of them, friends. Although we'll be lucky, it said, at the end of our life, if we can have as many as you can count on one hand. It's another thing, such as the world. But then romantic love, well, we're all troubled by that. It's a wild ride there. But this human love, you can see, for example, when I was a young man, young boy, really, and first found out what religion was about as a Catholic. I was taught by the Jesuits. We would go to church on Mass on Sundays and worship God. But I have to admit, sometimes my eyes were looking at the pretty girls, which one maybe I would marry at 10 years old. That was what we were supposed to do. So there's a greater draw, if you will, in these human forms of love than there is the reverential love. And the draw can be the draw can be so strong, if you will, and this is the idea of the Vrindavan love of Krishna, is that, as Radharani says, in love, if you say, I love you, then you don't know anything about love, because in love, there's only one. So love is the maturation, if you will, or the condensation of worship. Love is born, I often say, out of the womb, sacrifice, and any mother will tell you that, but it can intensify and grow in the way we're talking about it, and become the kind of frame which becomes the ideal of our lineage. All of the Vaishnav schools, which there are a number, who we revere, who worship different faces of the Godhead, they describe their goal as mukti. There are varieties of types of mukti. Mukti means freedom. It means freedom from or liberation from the limitations and the conditioning of material nature. That which we feel is unnatural. As human beings, we feel that the conditions of the world, limitations of the time and space place upon us are something that we should be able to transcend. Mm. We think of it in an ordinary sense, not in the full sense of transcendence, but we like to be able to go faster than we've ever gone before, or further than we've ever gone before, higher or deeper. Or human life is really much about celebrating the world over those moments, those instances when the records are broken, and a medal is given, and headlines are published about such events. So, the reason for this, from the point of view of Vedanta, of course, is that the complexity of human form of life compared to other forms of life is such that it affords the subjective aspect of life. We have, the world, our world is based on its objective and its subjective components. Objective world meaning the physical, quantitative world, brains, bodies, and all in the macrocosm that makes up the microcosm of our psychophysiological sense of self. And aside from that, and clearly, I would say, different from it, is the qualitative realm of feeling, taste, and what is the color red? You know, the famous Mary's room. It's an experiment, a thought experiment. You may be familiar with this. You take Mary and you put her in a room, and you teach her all of the physical components, if you will, that make up the color red. Everything physically about red, so that she knows what red is. Until she walks outside for the first time and sees red. Now she has the experience of red that transcends, that she couldn't have by understanding all of the physical elements. You don't know what an apple is until you've tasted it, right? I'm just giving a simple example to lay some stress on the subjective realm, the qualitative realm, the realm where meaning derives from. Matter derives its meaning from consciousness, right? So matter wouldn't matter unless it mattered to somebody. If it mattered independently of consciousness, who would know about it? Who would care? So the mattering of matter, which is more important, of course, the former, right? And according to the Vedanta, the theory is, it's a good one, that we are of the nature of mattering, meaning. What does Krishna say in the Gita? He says, apareyamitastamyam prakritim vidimeparam jiva bhuta mahabahu yaedam dharyate. So the Atman turns on the whole world, turns on the show. Of course, it's small, so the show, if you will, of material life would take over the life of the Atma for all intents and purposes, and the Atma could think or feel or experience that it has limitations, but it doesn't. You know, in the less complex forms of life, let's say the fish in the ocean or the birds in the sky. Well, the birds in the sky don't wonder what it's like to swim at the bottom of the ocean. The fish don't try to fly high in the sky. But human beings try to go to the bottom of the ocean, try to go high into the sky and beyond the sky, into space. So from the point of view of Vedanta, why are we doing that? Because there's something about us that's the life force in all species of life that is now in a vehicle that facilitates its coming to the surface. Because in human life, the question of why arises. In the less complex forms of life, we are driven by the questions how, to use Prabhupada's example, how to eat, how to sleep, how to mate, how to defend. So nature provides answers for that, right? The answers are embedded in nature. With a little bit of discovery, then they become revealed. all the different species of life. Every species of life has some defense mechanism, and they're better than us about how to mate. They've got that all figured out, worked out. It's a confusion for us. Of course, all things are confusion. How to eat, how to sleep, how to mate, how to defend are pretty much confusions for human society, but only, I would say, to the extent that they have not focused on the why question, which is which is obviously much more complex. It's a question about meaning, purpose, value. And of course, nature can't answer that question. Nature, however, can provide for us in such a way if we approach her through with gratitude, which is basically what in the Vedic world, the Varnashram system is about, how to show gratitude towards nature, how to say thank you, how to say please, how to make a sacrifice in order to attain a fruit, how to license the taking that our material karmic life is about, taking out of the sense that we're missing something, we need something more. We think that by acquisition, that problem will be resolved. Of course, it won't. But if we take with the license, if you will, by licensing our taking, if you will, by doing so in accordance with scriptural injunction and so forth, the bounty of life will be provided, but that the insight will come to us as to the futility of such in terms of really fulfilling the lack that we are feeling, which is the result of not knowing the self. Because we'll find that the bounty of life that we receive is here today or gone tomorrow, or even if we get it all. What are the stories of the kings, for example? So many kings in Bhagavatam. Much of the stories are all about just the simple fact that if you have it all, but you don't, maybe there's a saying in the Bible, never read it, but I think one of the thoughts that's coming to me, what is profit the man if he gain or woman the whole world if it is a loss of her soul, right? It's a small thing, but it's big. You're a spark, but big. It can really light up the whole world, right? Spark without us. Right? So, in human life, then we the limitations of material nature, we just don't fit here. The Atma doesn't fit. It's a bad fit. We feel it, but we don't know exactly what the problem is, what it arises from. So we try to break the boundaries, go beyond the really limits of time and space. We talk about time travel, even now and so forth. And so again, from the point of view of Vedanta, the reason for this is because Atma is coming to the fore, and it's not something that is constrained by time and space. It transcends time and space. It is Sat, which means it's real, which means it exists. It's real. And in Vedic terminology, that which is real exists and will never not exist. That which does not exist will never exist. We don't think that things that we acquire in our dreams are real because of that they're gone so quickly. We tend to think that the things that we acquire in waking life are more real because our possession of them endures. But ultimately, it's here today in English parlance and gone tomorrow, right? So the world, in terms of its manifestations, with name and form, they're here today, they're gone tomorrow. They're not real. But the observer, who's constant in all of this, is real. This is the Atma, the self. And it's coming out in human life and it's asking about itself. Therefore, we say, go without, I should say, go within, or go without. And there's a methodology, of course, for going in and learning. We'll give it in a Buddhist context that less is more. This is very it seems almost like translogical or something. But Actually, this is the way in which life proceeds. If we observe carefully, that the more we give, the more we get. Ultimately, giving is the getting. When you give and you give selflessly, of course, it's relative to the object that you give. Ultimately, we have to find an object that we can take unlimitedly. And in the context of doing so, redistribute that energy. This is, of course, the idea of God, like the stomach of the body. We give all the food there, then it will distribute the energy, redistribute it in ways that no other part could, right? So, yeah, so to give, when we give and we truly give, we get something. We can't always hold up what we've got. We get a sense of more completeness. And we're attractive also to other people. Right? So we grow by giving. Love is about giving. That consciousness that is a unit of reality, sat, it's also chit. It's cognizant. And it's also joyful. It, it is, it exists, it knows, and it loves. And of course, its being and its knowing derive from its loving. This is a very important point. We're just talking about the nature of consciousness for a moment, which is rising in human life and facilitated by the vehicle of the human body to the point that it can think about itself, become to know itself. We've come from animality to humanity, and humanity is that section that position, that time in our existence, in our trajectory, that's in between animality and spirituality, right? So we go from animality to humanity, and using the human life properly, we understand the spiritual. We can enter into the spiritual. We can transcend the limits. And what is the nature then of that realm, that subjective realm that we're a particle of, we're a unit of? We're a spark of the fire, if you will, of the Godhead, caught up in the smoke. Smoke is not really a part of fire, but smoke cannot exist independent of combustion. So it's like a Shakti, the fire. It's, what would you say, opaque? Opaque, right? What's the opposite of opaque? Translucent. Right. Anyway, so the smoke, so the spark in this analogy, of course, is ourselves, and smoke is the Maya Shakti. The fire is the Godhead, and it has internally heat and light. It has samvit and hladini, a kind of super knowing and super loving. Samvit sandini. So we're a particle of that fire. So we are sat, we exist, chit, we love. And while something could exist, it need not know. But something could not know and not exist. Something could know and exist, but need not love. But if something is to love, then it must know and it must exist. So consciousness is really in its heart. The consciousness of consciousness is loving. We magnify this, we come to Hladini. We come to Hladini, we come to Srimati Radharani. The counter whole, counter other. The second, Krishna being the first of two bodies with one soul. Right? This is Achintya Veda. And in every devotee, there's a little bit of Radha, yet to be manifest, a little bit of bhakti. She is Bhakti Devi. So what I'm saying to you, it's simply, not that simple, but because consciousness in this analysis is ultimately about love, then more than it's just being different from the brain, or just being what it's like to be something. These are modern day explanations of consciousness. What it's like to be something. In other words, to have It's experiential reality in a certain container. The body, the mind don't produce consciousness, but they can shape how it will express itself. That's the limitations that it's under in different vessels or vehicles. These are very rudimentary explanations of consciousness that are high in the world of science of mind and contemporary philosophy, where there's a repeated effort to reduce consciousness to just the brain and tell us that the whole subjective component of life is an illusion. The only thing that's real is physical, the result of which is that good and bad are not ontologically grounded, they're just human convention. That's all. It's a frightening perspective. There's no actual good, there's no actual bad, there's no actual meaning and purpose. Where such people are very bent on telling us that the no meaning life. Can't get away from that. Looking for meaning. This is human life, as I say. So more anyway than consciousness being, as it maybe more generously described by those in a thought world of contemporary philosophy and who are moving away from this reductive perspective on consciousness and starting to admit that, maybe it's not coming from the brain. Maybe it's fundamental. Maybe it is the most fundamental reality. Indeed, maybe it's more fundamental than time and space. After all, nothing exists outside of consciousness as far as we know. Right? And in order to find it, you need consciousness if it did. So consciousness is the measurer. So, you're asking the ruler to measure itself, measuring consciousness. So this is a little bit how confused modern society can be when you take intelligence and you unhinge it from revelation, from the sounds, for example, embedded in the material reality, like mathematical equations that the rishis, inward persons of ages gone by have heard. They've heard the sound, and they've reiterated it in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, in the Isho Upanishad, Shruti, and so forth. Is revelation, to reason about revelation, and then to try to explain it, for example, in stories, like the Puranas do. Let me tell you a story to make a point. Therefore, the story can be told a little differently in different Puranas. We expand the story in a Lila Grantha, like our Goswamis have, based on the Bhagavatam. Details may be different. Take some liberty with that because we're trying to explain a point, and indeed convey a feeling, a possibility for loving as a friend, the absolutes, for loving as romantically with the Godhead, the face of Godhead, which with whom such extraordinary idea can be experienced. That is the two-handed human-like Krishna, right? And those leelas of Krishna. This means love is by nature. It's active. It's moving. It's the more you love, the more you're awake. Can't sleep at night. See the Krishna Leela. Brahman is still. In Vaikuntha, there's some movement, no doubt. But in Krishna Leela, the movement is exponentially greater. I mean, Krishna can't even, he stays up all night practically. Brahman is big, spacious, free from the constraints of time and space. Shanti, 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 peace, right? If we go from there to Vaikuntha, it looks like we're going into something smaller. Now there are forms, names, but it's bigger. Why is it bigger? Because it's bigger by measure of affection. In Brahman, there's no one else to experience, right? In Vaikuntha, there's a significant other, Narayan. If we go from Vaikuntha, which is big, Adhoksaja, to Vrindavan, it's very small, bucolic, rural, countryside, some farmers. It's not London. No, it's not London. It's a little place in out village. You don't hear anything about it in the big city. Nobody in Vaikuntha knows about the Braja Leela, about Goloka. Again, that doesn't compute with them, that you could act with God like a friend, to a friend. And you know how you talk to your friend, bluntly, to the point. What kind of names you might call him. In the Gita, we find this Sakyabhav showcased as no other rasa is. In the 11th chapter, Krishna said, Arjuna says, Hey Krishna, hey Yadava, hey Sakhi. These names, as they're used in that context, spoken by Arjuna says, I used to have called you, hey Krishna, hey Yadava, hey Saketi. Look at them carefully. In that context, they're being used in a derogatory way. Arjuna is calling Krishna. Who do you think you are? Hey Krishna, hey Yadava, you're Yadava. And so this is friendship. Yeah. Some example, but kind of intimacy. To think that you could interact with God like that, this is unheard of in Vaikuntha. Unheard of, right? It's a big, big place, just like it's like a London, right? And what's going on in some village with a few animals, and so this news doesn't come from there. So we go to Goloka, and it looks even smaller. You see, the equation in Brahman is that Sat, amongst the elements that consciousness is constituted of, is prominent. Sat, existence, is prominent. We go to Vaikuntha, the scales are tipped, and Chit becomes more prominent. So Chit means consciousness, awareness. So there's another in relation to that. And Ananda goes up a little bit too. But when we go to Vrindavan, Ananda is high, takes precedence, and Chit and Sat are apparently diminished. And how is that understood? Well, like I say, it's not London. Existentially, it's just a little village place. What's the knowing there? They don't even know that Krishna's God, right? They don't know. They're not like schooled in the Upanishads. If a rishi comes to Vrindavan, they don't say, oh, Narada, I think you're a Vaidhi Bhakta, right? We are Raganuga Bhaktas. No, they fall at his feet. Tell us something. You're omniscient. You know everything. You're Trikalagya. You know the past, present, and future. Tell us something. What will become of our village? All the girls, they seem hard to control. Something like that. So, but if you love someone, then, you could live in a cave, right? Or in the hollow of a tree. So the affection, as the measure of affection increases, the space becomes more accommodating. This is the idea. So the Braja Leela, when we talk about fraternal love, Sakyabhav, we're talking about this kind of movement and transcendence we call Leela, in a particular type of Leela. And we broadly speaking, whether it be romantic love or fraternal love, as we're talking about, we call it prem. Yeah, there's a kind of prem in Vaikuntha, but it's restrained. The full measure of prem is not the prem that you have in church. It's the prem that's causing you to look for, maybe her. I don't know, or something like that. Or you're in church and you're looking on your phone, worrying, thinking about your kids at home or something. Didn't come to church. What are you doing? What may be the case, right? So these forms of love in human society, we see they're more intense in reverential love. Indeed, in Vrindavan, in Goloka, they all worship Narayan. Hmm? They're all worshiping Narayan like this, mechanically, and their mind is running somewhere else, right? Their mind is running. They're going to church on Sunday. They're going to church on Sunday, but their mind is somewhere else. Their mind is with Krishna. Where is he now? When will he return from the forest? Right? This is a very beautiful idea, and it's very profound. Um, and so we've been talking a little about Sakyarasa, and because over 500 plus years of our lineage, its role has been obscured. There are a lot of interesting reasons for that. I won't go into all of them, but the book I've written, Sakyarasa, makes it abundantly clear that the role of Sakyarasa is very significant in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and very refreshing to find to bring out a feature or an aspect of our tradition that called out to me in this instance as an opportunity for service. And so that said, I have spoken in recent days, given some examples of how Sakyarasa is prominent. I'll just run through a few of them very quickly without expanding upon them. We find, for example, in the Gita, medium through which Krishna takes us to what I call the stage, dramatic stage of Sharanagati, which the Gita ends on. Sarvadharman pratyajamami sharanam praja. This is the culmination of the Gita. This is the theological sequel to the Gita is the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada used to say the Gita is the book of spiritual intelligence. And the Bhagavatam is the book of spiritual life. So the Leelas of Krishna, the drama of Krishna Leela, is played out in the Bhagavatam, but it's played out on the stage of Sharanagati. Sharanagati is the outer expression of faith. It means to surrender. It's what sadhana bhakti in practice is characterized by. The earnestness to give up that which is not favorable to bhakti, to retire it. It's recognizing of one's weakness, which is a strength. We hold up our hands. Hare Krishna. We wear the tilak. Hare Krishna will see us during the arti. We're trying to catch his attention. There's an effort in our bhakti, but it's very different than the overt effort of yoga and jnana. These are arduous and very virile in nature, the effort. But in bhakti, the effort is very feminine, actually. It's an effort to get grace. Prabhupada once was asked about yoga. He said, yoga, we do yoga. This is our yoga. Krishna, please help me. That's all. Is yoga. We could expand upon that considerably. It's quite a keen philosophical insight, but and we can understand it very simply. So, in the Gita, the medium through which Krishna brings us to that stage after 18 chapters is his friend Arjuna. Arjuna is a city friend of Krishna. This is called, what is the term? Pura Sambandhi. Pura means somebody from the city, a city pal. Krishna, he's the most prominent of Krishna's friends in the metropolitan area of Hastinapur, Dwarka, and so forth. Whereas Krishna has friends in the village, and they're more intimate there. More intimate. But through the medium of Sakyarasa, Bhaktosi me sakacheti hasya hiri itarutam. In the fourth chapter, which is about Jnana Yoga, it is introduced, the introduction of that chapter is a short dissertation on Avatar Tattva, which talks about I've come before, I know about it, many lives I've had, you don't remember them, I do, and so forth. Sambhavami Yuga Yuga, I make my advent here again, Yuga after Yuga. And he says, Bhaktosi ne sakacheti rahasya hi edarutam. This Uttama Rahasya, this very great secret, I tell you because you are Masaka, my friend, my Bhakta and Masaka. Bhakto Sine Saka Cheti. So it's a small point, but it's very beautiful. Through the medium of Sakirasa, Krishna takes us to the stage, the dramatic stage, on which the drama of Krishna Lila will be performed. You have to erect this stage in your heart. Sadhana Bhakti is about building that stage, growing one's faith, a good association, subsequent practice, and so on and so forth, and the spirit of sadhana bhakti, which is bhakti in apprenticeship, so to speak. In sadhana bhakti, the actions of bhakti, the active component of bhakti, are not driven by trans-psychological emotions, by bhava. They're driven by intelligence, reasoning, if you will, somewhat by material emotion. You can use your material emotions, if you will, dovetail them and so forth, and in service and so forth. You're doing it because, well, I remember when I was young and I first came to the temple in the United States, and I spent the night there, and in the morning, the devotees got up and they took a shower and so forth. And so I asked one of them, why do you guys shave your head? It wasn't fashionable in those days. Okay, it was part of the alternative culture, right, to the extreme. So, and he said, because Prabhupada does. Now that's not a very, okay, but I thought that was really far out. I thought, they really love him, I thought yeah, everybody's looking for that, right? So sadhana bhakti is like this. It's like bhakti in apprenticeship. You follow the example of another bhakta who was, had influence on your life. And I can tell you something, as a young man, and if anyone here amongst us, a god sister of mine as well, young men, boys and girls probably used to call us, we were, we just did whatever he did, however we could understand it, almost to a fault, right? Almost to a fault, definitely to a fault. He didn't give us time to think for ourselves, so to speak, kind of arrested our minds and intelligence, put something in our heart with the hope that in time it would surface and we could use our intelligence spiritually to do something for him, meaningfully, to carry on the tradition, to explain it in greater depth and so forth, and help others to grow their bhakti. So sadhana bhakti, this is the spirit of this is submission, surrender, grow one's faith. And bhava bhakti, when the emotional component of bhakti kicks in, so this is bhakti proper. Now the same actions that you do, hearing and chanting, so they're driven by bhava, by emotion. The goal of sadhana bhakti is to give rise to these spiritual emotions that transcend material emotions, right? After all, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in Shikshastakam, na dhanam, na janam, na sundaram, kavitam bha. It means all my material emotions have been retired. Bhabatad bhakti rohaitu kitoi. Now I'm being driven only by ruchi, by a taste for bhakti. This is the beginning, the budding beginning of what will flower and fruit into spiritual emotion proper and condensation of that we call praying. Particular kind of praying, sakya praying. Madhurya praying, for example. Praying is the prayojan, is the goal, as I was saying earlier. The other Vaishnava Sampradayas say mukti is their goal. This is very much a Gaudiya word, praying. And we're talking about praying that is reflected, if you will, in human society. It's an esoteric concept that we can look within human society to understand. I was saying some rasas are compatible with others, some aren't, right? Sakya and Madhurya are compatible. Vatsalya is not compatible with Madhurya. What does it mean? Well, if you're a young adolescent lover and your boyfriend is visiting and no one's home, and then the elders come in, well, you're going to change your behavior. That influence is going to contract your romantic sentiments for one another. Or if you're young boys playing without a chaperone and an elder comes in, your Sakya Bhav, your fraternal love is going to contract. So Vatsalya is the enemy of Madhurya, parental love. It's the enemy of friendship. But in Braj, of course, without that enemy, there would be no Parakiya. So it's all beautiful. Parakiya means, the apparently, superficially illicit love of Radha and Krishna that never loses its pitch because it's always threatened, right? Anyway, that's a big topic, but so these sentiments, they all work together. We don't say one is better than the other, only maybe to inspire someone who has one of them as their ideal. We can talk about it in a way that is the best. But in the spiritual world, the subjective consideration rules. What's best is what's best for each devotee. Each devotee feels their sentiment is the best. So the Sakyabhav, Arjuna, if we go to the Bhagavatam begins with Krishna giving Brahma the seed verses, 4 verses, from which the whole Bhagavatam is expanded into whatever, 18,000 verses. In that setting, it's clear from the Bhagavatam, as it's described, that Brahma received the Siksha and Diksha from Krishna and the aspiration to serve him in Sakyabhav, that particular Brahma, serve him in Sakyabhav. And Krishna shook his hand and said, I'll teach you about that in due course. Half of his life went by. He brought him to Braj, where he participated in the Brahma Vimohan Leela. Vimohan means bewilderment. Brahma was not enlightened by 4 heads. Don't think that one head you will be enlightened with. The whole enlightenment of Europe is a questionable idea. The virtue of reason above and beyond any other way of knowing. Brahma came to know what could not be known even by 4 heads, caused them spinning. The Leela is called Brahma Vimohan, not just Mohan. Mohan means bewilderment, super bewilderment. He was bewildered by the majesty of that Leela, showing that all the Narayans emanate from him, and also by the Madhurya, by the sweetness of persons, friends interacting with God in this way. He was like, oh my God, what is this? It's just too extraordinary. He was bewildered, but the bewildering caused a kind of knowing that infused and informed his practice. So then he practiced. What happened after the Brahma Vimohan Leela is he went to Navadvip and repented that he might have offended Krishna. And got the darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who manifested and said, it's all right. Brahma was feeling the same, if only I could have been a Gopa, instead of offending them. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, so be it, you be a Gopa. Yes, this is what it's all about. This is what you got initiated into, this ideal. Other half of your life, you spend that practicing Rag Bhakti, and after that life, you will take birth in Navadvip, and I will be here, and you will appear as Kijai. Haridas, Kijai. Who is the Nam Acharya? Mahaprabhu said, you are, by example, who we should look to for how to apply oneself in relation to the method of my madness. The method of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his madness is this Nam Kirtan. Brahma Haridas, there he's setting a good example. So here he is now. Satyarasa is playing a role in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Roy Ramananda had an important conversation with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Ramananda Samvad. Who is Ramananda? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Ramananda is Pandavarjan. Conversation between Ramananda Roy and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was what all of his South Indian tour was really about. Hmm? And there, the roles were reversed. Krishna became the questioner, which Arjuna is in the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, and Ramananda Roy became the answerer. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became the questioner, taking Arjuna's role. And Arjuna, as Ramananda Roy, took Krishna's role. Krishna's basically saying, I spoke Bhagavad Gita to you in the last life, now let me see what you learned. I'll be the questioner, and let's see what kind of answers you can come up. And Ramananda Roy understood. He understood so well that the devotees started to think, how could Pandava Arjuna understand all these things about the Braj Leela? After all, he's a metropolitan friend, and this is the romantic life of the gopis is pretty, it's not understood in Hastinapur, Dwarka, haunts of typically of Arjuna. So they reasoned, oh, he must be maybe infused also by some measure of Madhurya Bhav. There's also another Arjuna who's an Narmasaka, a friend of Krishna, whose friendship is tinged with romanticism enough for him to be able to participate in the romantic life of Krishna, as a friend might offer a shoulder for a lover in his crisis to cry on. An empathizer, right? This kind of friend. He's a friend in all respects, and also in this respect. So Kavi Karnapur, for example, says, some people say that you can't say he's not on Pandava Arjuna because that's what Mahaprabhu said. That he got combined influence from Arjuna Saka. Therefore, that he could further speak on the deepest implications, the highest theological implications of Krishna's speech in the Gita. Tushyanti cha, Ramanti cha, Sambandha rupa, Kama rupa bhakti, Madhyata madhyata pranan, Udayanta parasparam, Katayantas jamam nityam, Tushyanti cha, Ramanti cha. These are core verses of the Gita, right? Krishna saying, oh, they're always chanting about me, they're enlightening one another, speaking about me. And as a result, they attain Tushanti, Ramanti. These terms refer to the four bhavas of Braj. Tushanti means Sambandharup, means Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya. And Ramanticha means Kamanu, Madhurya Rasa. These are the four. And it's the whole package. None can function without the other. They all have an important role. And Krishna chooses which role you will play. This is teleological reality of of who you are to be realized in due course. And in Gaudiya Sampradaya, this lineage, as I'm explaining, we all know it's saturated with Madhurya Rasa. Krishna's Chaitanya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, who's come to taste himself from the vantage point of Radha. But he needs some help with that. Balaram is coming. Who could be a bigger example of Sakya-rasa than Balaram, the best friend of Krishna, as Nityananda Ram. So these are some examples, right? How Sakya-rasa is playing a role. In the Braj Leela, it plays a role. Krishna goes cowherding on the pretext of being dharmic, because he's a Vaishya, he should take care of cows and relieve his elder father from caring about the cows and take up the business, the family business, be dharmic. He convinces his parents and their Vatsalya to get out of the way and let me be a cow herder. But in the context of doing that, on the pretext of being a cow herder, he just wants to be with his friends and play in the forest, unchaperoned. And on the pretext of just wanting to be with his friends, he wants to be in the forest where he could rendezvous and secret with the gopis in broad daylight. So these all sentiments working together. So there's any number of ways we could go on, but I wanted to talk tonight about a particular development. If we go further in the Sampradaya, we see over the centuries, over the decades and centuries, the influence of Sakya-rasa is there. There are reasons why it got obscured and so forth. And they have to do with the weakening of the vitality of the tradition, which Krishna speaks about in the Gita. He says, Evam parampara praptam imam raja shaya vidu, sakalena mahata yogamishta. Over time, sometimes it may happen that the current of my dispensation may become weakened. And I remedy that by Guru Parampara, by investing my power in another devotee who will set things straight by precept and also, more importantly, by example. So we find a prominent example of this in the person of Thakur Bhakti Vinod. Thakur Bhakti Vinod, Ki Jai. There's nobody more prominent in Gaudiya Vaishnavism in modern times than Bhakti Vinod Thakur. What he did for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. He put Gaudiya Vaishnavism, he took the necessary steps that would result in Gaudiya Vaishnavism being placed on the world, on the stage along with the world's religions. And his disciple Bhaktisiddhanta gave some shape to that with his Gaudiya mission. And my Guru Maharaj, Prabhupada, our Prabhupada, took it all over the world, right? Now you can find within academics, within Indology, for example, this Gaudiya Vaishnavism is probably the most interesting and exciting topic. It used to be a real monolith. Hinduism results in Brahman, Advaita Vedanta idea. That there were other schools of Vedanta, so it was practically unknown. But through the lineage of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, not only did Gaudiya Vaishnavism come to the fore, and it's very interesting. Theologically, it's very complex and interesting, and it's human likeness, if you will. Human like, it's very important, both words, human and like. Human like means it's human and it's not human. It's like human, but so very interesting. Transcendence with form and so forth. And the whole idea of a place in transcendence for emotions, transpsychological emotions, very interesting subject. In as it rose to the fore and of interest and so forth, through our particular lineage within Gaudiya Vaishnavism, all these other Vaishnava sampradayas also had light shed on them. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, it will come to pass that all of the Vaishnava sampradayas will show their debt to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But they're doing it, it's happening. And you should be proud members of the particular lineage within Gaudiya Vaishnavism that this has taken place. And our task is to speak about and exemplify Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the contemporary world, in consideration of contemporary thought and the times in which we live and so forth and so on, in a way that in an ongoing sense sheds new light on Gaudiya Vaishnavism, brings out more of its depth, polishes the gem of Gaudiya Vaishnavism and shows another facet of it and so forth. If it is to consume in due course human society, it won't happen in your life, nor it won't happen in mine. There are things in progress that are moving in that direction, a whole paradigm shift from thinking consciousness as a biological foundation to realizing it doesn't, but it's the most foundational feature of existence. This is a huge, this will happen maybe in some of you younger person's lives. That's very dramatic. And then what is the nature of consciousness? To get into that, well, we have a lot to say, as you can see. It's a very interesting subject. So I wanted to, anyway, in the context of speaking about contributions of Sakyabhav to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, shed a little light on my Guru Maharaj in this regard, because I've given old examples. Old is the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, examples in Gaur Leela and so forth. I could give other examples of the centuries of the continuation of Sakyaras here and there, examples and so forth in the lineage. But there's a huge wave of this. It had much to do within the lineage of Bhaktivinoda Thakur for bringing Gaudiya Vaishnavism around the world, and that is in the person of my Guru Maharaj. We all know the story of Prabhupada's campaign. We are all here because of that, right? Mm-hmm. And it's all of us, whether we're initiated by a member of his institution or not. It's all. I remember once, so in Vrindavan, I was at a shop after by force of circumstances, I thought it was best in my interest to serve Prabhupada by serving outside of ISKCON under the guidance of Puja Patrita Maharaj, his Godbrother, who's my Siksha Guru. And so I was in a shop in Vrindavan, and I was acquiring something for the deities. And I knew the shopkeepers. We knew all the shopkeepers in those days. Brought so much life for its disciples economically and to Vrindavan. We were well liked there. So I said to him, he said, which temple you are with now, Maharaj? I said, oh, I'm not in ISKCON. He said, Maharaj, you will always be ISKCON. I said, oh, yeah. The broader sense of what it is, right? We've all come through the house and the extra rooms and the AUD, they use that term here. Like if you build a cottage in your backyard. So I live in a cottage in the backyard of the house that Prabhupada built and everybody converted. It's on the same property, okay? We're all together here. We're all members of the family, really extended family of Bhakti Vinod. But the curious thing about Prabhupada is the internal engine that drove his external campaign, which is historic and will never be repeated by anyone. It's just a wonderful chapter in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism's, spreading itself around the world. That we know that story. You can't say enough about it. I was personally we all are, but I was part of the first, generation. Prabhupada was very, very, very kind to me. What can I say? He was very kind to me. I am not perfect, and I made many mistakes. And a good number of my godbrothers tried to correct me by telling Prabhupada, he's doing this, he's like that. But Prabhupada was so kind, he never listened to that. He never gave an ear to that. You have to be humbled by that. He would never entertain that. Anyway, he is selling my books. He would say like that. He was very kind. So, you are all here directly or indirectly because of him. And I see all of you as helping me to continue to try to do something in a service. And so with regard to the topic, I wanted to comment on a poem that Prabhupada wrote that some of you, many of you may be familiar with, but Prabhupada was born in this world in a Sakiras family. The Nityananda Prabhu was very prominent in his outreach in Saptagram in West Bengal, and Prabhupada had said that by the time the British made Calcutta the crown jewel of their empire, half of Calcutta was populated by these Muluk and Aday families, all coming from the mercantile community of Saptagram, which was 7 villages along the bank of the Ganga, as it flowed at that time. And this was the main canvassing area of Nityananda Prabhu, where so many Sakiras lineages were begun, because Nityananda Prabhu was picking up eternal associates of his from the Braj Leela, the Dwadasa Gopals, 12 friends prominent friends of, like you have 108 gopis or principal 8 gopis, Astasaki, so Dwadasa Gopal, and then engaging them in spreading Sankirtan and so forth. They had been disenfranchised from Hinduism by the ruling king, Balal Sain, so they were in a difficult situation, and Nityananda Prabhu came and picked them all up and turned them into Vaishnavas, all Sakiras lineages. The Prabhu was born in that lineage. In fact, the patron saint of his family was Udarandata Thakur, who was the right-hand man of Nityananda Prabhu, and a very, very generous and magnanimous person he was. Um, and, um, and of course, he was named Abhaycharan De by his father. Then in due course, of course, he met great Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. And in him, he had met a real Swami. His father taught us a lesson, Prabhupada. The lesson is this: we should be inclined towards sadhu sangha. Better to err on the side of being generous towards sadhus and hearing from them than to be afraid that I might hear the wrong thing and avoid them. That's fact. You don't want a samskara for that, an impression. Be suspicious. I mean, this is quite the time we live. Everybody's suspicious of authorities, and for good reason. And we've been disappointed by spiritual authorities too, even in our own tradition. I understand that, but we can't let that rule over us. If there's a misrepresentation, there has to be something that's good that's misrepresented. It has to still be alive. We should have faith in Krishna. He keeps this alive. You have to look for him. That's right. A good association. Keep try to develop, this kind of impression or samskar for hearing from senior Vaishnavas, or even someone who poses as senior Vaishnava. If you have that tendency, you'll understand what Vaishnavism is, and then when you extend that generosity to somebody who's not worthy, you'll understand it. You could still be generous with it, but you'll understand. Hare Krishna. Something like that. So what's the example of Prabhupada? Anybody that looked like a sadhu in town, he'd invite him. And Prabhupada was, Dad, I mean, these guys aren't sadhus, You should see what they do after they leave your house here. You give them a donation and they go and buy beaties and smoke and so forth. And so Prabhupada was a little, had experience like some of you. Right? He had experience like some of them, but he kept some openness. And the friend said, I want to meet a sadhu. I said, I have so many sadhus. My dad has, I've seen these babas. He said, no, this one's different, right? And then once hearing from Bhaktisiddhanta, he could understand. So he became grounded then, right? In the sangha and the sak, in the siksha of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he took initiation from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who retained his name at birth, Abhaycharan, but added to it Abhaycharan Anavinda, which means Abhaycharan means who is Abhay, fearless, at the feet, Charan, implication, that's Krishna. At whose feet one becomes fearless. So Bhaktisiddhanta changed his name to Abhaycharan Anavinda, at whose, the servant das of one who becomes, at whose lotus feet, Anavinda, one becomes fearless. And eventually, of course, Prabhupada entered the sannyas order. He was given the sannyas order and mantra from his godbrother, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, the worshipable godbrother of his, who he had such affection for, wept visibly when he heard of his, amongst his disciples, in the midst of them, when he heard news that he had passed from the world. And so forth. Composed a verse at that time also in praise of him. And of course, he named him Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. Swami is one of the 108 sannyas names in our tradition. Swami, Ashram, Saraswati, Goswami, Aranya, Tirtha, and so forth. So Swami is one of them. So his sannyas name was Swami, and then the system of Bhaktisiddhanta was to preface the sannyas name with two names, one or two syllable, 2 or 3 syllable name, Bhakti, and a 2 or 3 syllable name that said something about the person. So Bhakti Vedanta. They thought he was well grounded in Vedanta. Bhaktisiddhanta encouraged him to write and so on and so forth. But Prabhupada always retained the AC. AC was Abhaycharan, AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So he felt there was some significance in those names, Abhaycharan. The very name Abhay, actually, it speaks to us about the pradhan, the central foundational constituent of Sakyabhav, which is Vishramba, which means a kind of, it means really fearlessness, that there be no fear in relation to Krishna, no reverence, even where there should be, because he's God. This is Sakya, that kind of intimacy. So he retained the name. That's something to think about. Prabhupada told me something about that, but I won't tell you about that now. So then, of course, Prabhupada felt that he had been given an order by Bhaktisiddhanta to preach to English-speaking people, and based on a letter that he received from the Thakur. And he, as you know, the struggle is very extraordinary to get the passage on a commercial vehicle to come, a vessel to come to the United States. And aboard that boat, he wrote the poem. Now, he didn't write this poem for publication. This was an intimate, internal moment. So this is now, we should be thinking, whoa. What is it said in Upadeshamrita? Nuyam akhyati prichati. This is love in Vaishnavism. If a sadhu reveals her heart to you, we find this in some of the texts. In the 5th chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Krishnadas Kaviraj is speaking about Nityananda Ram, his heart comes out. I'm going to tell you something. This is the end of the chapter. I'm going to tell you something. End of the chapter. I shouldn't speak about it. But if I don't, the merciful nature of Nityananda will not be known. Well, how much pay attention there, right? Sometimes in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das, who's in Sakyabhav, he has expressed his heart in different places. These are the most important sections of the book. You know how to read, and and hear, then you'll see these will stand out like road signs. Oh, what a blessing that he is. So this is what this poem is about. And he didn't mean it for publication, but we found it, right? And we published it, and we means his disciples, and they didn't understand it. But Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj had memorized it, sitting on his veranda as we used to do, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, asking questions and hearing answers that made you forget about the questions as he transported you into the deep, into the subjective world and all of its implications. One day the topic came up, something about Prabhupada, and he voiced sections of the poem that he had committed to heart, and he'd reasoned about them. And then he began to speak about them and give exercise of Shastra Yukti, using reasoning in relation to scripture to give evidence to support his premise or his insight that Prabhupada's ideal was Sakyarasa, which was something that some of us knew. We just felt it without being able to explain it, or we just felt it and kind of knew it. Now, I published a small book that is available here. It's called Oh My Friend. And I've collected there all of the things that Prabhupada said about his inner life. And it's like, if you read it, you'll think, wow, Prabhupada's really said a lot, but he didn't say it all in one place, just here and there, here and there. So the research and gather all those things and put them in one place. It's a very compelling case for what is the inner life, what is the Shakti. Krishna Shakti Vininahi Tara Pravartan. Without Krishna Shakti, Krishna Das Kaviraj says, you cannot effectively do spread Sankirtan. Shakti means bhava. Bhava means a defining, self-defining emotion has arisen. Friendship, romanticism, parental. So this Shakti, this Swarup Shakti, it has blossom, bloom, what fruited in Prabhupada's life, and it's like underneath, right, the force that he is effectively doing this campaign all over the world. So it's interesting. We all know about the campaign, but a little something else about Prabhupada's life that's worth hearing about. And he wrote about it. There's a number of things he said, as I mentioned, but this poem is very central to that. So I wanted to read the poem. How long we talked? I don't want to take up too much of your time. How long? Okay, I'll try to go quickly. All right, I have important things to do. So, you know this song? Hmm? Krishna tava punya tabe bhai. E punya kuribe jabe radharani kushi habi. Vibhati boli tumatai. I was graced, blessed, with the opportunity to go to the Bhaktivedanta Manor recently. I was there first in 1973, just after the DDs were installed, before there was any heat in the building. I had been called there to do some service in the UK. But to see it now after all these years and how it's developed, it's very inspiring, right? I went in to have the darshan of the deity, Radha Gokulananda, and a couple of younger men were doing kirtan, sitting down doing kirtan. So after I paid my obeisance to the deities, I went and sat with them to chant. And they chanted, and then suddenly they began to sing this song. This is my favorite song. I don't know how they knew that. I don't know. I had been talking about Saki Bhav, and the kirtaneer was in the lecture the night before. I think he might have thought about it. So it was things happen for a reason, right? You see, I follow Prabhupada externally, and I follow him internally also. Just they couldn't figure that out. State the obvious, I should say. Excuse me. So Prabhupada says, Krishna tava punya abe bhai, e punya kuribe jave radharani kushi hobe, uva ati boli tomatai. He's saying here that, oh Krishna bhai. He said this prayer is called a prayer to Lord Krishna. So this is who he's speaking to. He invokes the word bhai, and this is all Bengali, and bhai means brother, it means friend. We refer to your friend as bhai, typically. It's an intimate term. The word comes up twice in the poem. The second time he uses it, it's very, very clear. It says, Tomara milani bhai, abarase sukapai, gocharani guridin. Well, oh, my friend Krishna, buddy, pal, comrade, when will I unite with you and herd cows all day long throughout the day, throughout the different forests of Vrindavan, tumbling and somersaulting in play, very beautifully describing his longing for Sakiras. But this comes later. This poem is divided into two sections. Sharanagati, which means sadhana bhav, the spirit of sadhana bhav, sadhana bhakti, which is important to us, and then bhava bhakti, which is characterized not by supplication and surrender, but by longing. Bhaktisiddhanta used to say, first deserve, then desire. If you want to desire such a high thing, deserve it. Build the stage of Sharanagati. Then the drama will come of Krishna Lila and dance in your heart. So Prabhupada here is referring to Krishna. He says, oh Krishna, bhai, buddy, I want to make a point to you. Just as everything orbits around the fixed position of the pole star. The pole star is the North Star, we call it. The pole star is a star that lines up with the North Pole, and it remains for the most part fixed. And the orbit, the Earth goes around this, and the stars go around, and it stays there. It's a North Star, metaphorically and philosophically. It's thought as the guiding light. It's a metaphor for the guiding. What is your North Star that is going to, by which you're going to, make your course and direct your course. So Prabhupada's invoking this in the Sanskrit language and Puranas and so forth. It's called Dhruvaloka. Dhruvaloka. Dhruva in the Bhagavatam was like the pole star. He was so determined, right? He wanted a kingdom. His kingdom his brother had gotten the kingdom, and he didn't get it. He was overlooked in terms of the inheritance, and he was upset about it. So he approached his mother with determination, and she said, well, God can give you a kingdom. So where can I get God? Well, he lives in the forest. Then I'll go to the forest. No, you're just a little boy. How can you go to the forest? But he was Dhruva. He went, and he stayed there, and So Dhruva, he's not moving, he's not budging from this. This is this idea, right? And Nard came, appeared to him, gave him mantra and so forth. This is Dhruva. So Prabhupada invokes the term. This is the implication here. What is Prabhupada saying? He's saying that, listen, pal, bit of advice for you. This is how Krishna's friends will talk to him. Sometimes they serve him, sometimes he serves them. And some of his friends, there are different types of friends. One of them is this Narmasaka, who my books is focused on, that particular type of friend, which is the kind of friend that Prabhupada was. They advise Krishna morally and even counsel in his romantic life and so forth. Right? So he says, listen, pal, I want to make a point to you for your consideration. Just as everything orbits around the fixed position of the pole star, it is also fixed or certain, dhruva ati boli tomatai, that the piety and success of your life revolves around the pleasure of Radhika. If you please Radha, your life will be successful. Once I met Chaitanya Goswami, he's one of the Radharamana Goswamis, and he was a young man when Prabhupada first came to Vrindavan. And Prabhupada and Gaudiya Mat, they looked a little different than the Babajis in their saffron robes and stuff like that. So he said, I said to Swamiji, he was very exciting, but I said to him, I don't quite understand him. He looks different. So I said to him, Swamiji, how will we please Krishna? He's telling me this. And Swamiji said, pleasing Radha. Then I knew he was a Vaishnava. He's Gaudiya Vaishnava. Oh, he looks different, but he's one of us. So the way to Krishna's heart is through Radha. There's a couple of ways that you can get there, right? And this Narmasaka bhav is one of the ways you can get there. And Krishna's gotten very much, or Prabhupada's very much found a way to get to Krishna's heart here. Krishna said, what? You know that? Don't tell anybody. That's the secret thing. I'm God. Right? If people think I'm henpecked or something like that, and what's going to happen to the yogis, and the jnanis? Oh gosh, this is the secret of secrets here. Prabhupada used to say, everybody, all the religious people, they think that God is the most worshipable object. But we are teaching who is the worshipable object of God. Let's go to Vaishnavas. Jai Radhe. So he gets Krishna's attention with this, with the refrain, if you will, in the opening for the poem. And then he says what? Siddhanta Saraswati Sachi Sutta Priya Ati Krishna Seva Jad Tulanai Se Mohan Baluru Jagater Madhya Uru Krishna Bhakti Jai Thai Thai. So again, he says then, Siddhanta Saraswati, my guru, is so dear to Sachi Sutta, is incomparable in his Krishna Seva. Indeed. This is what, this is a translation with a purport, okay? I'm trying to clear the feeling here. Siddhanta Saraswati, so dear to Sachi Sutta, is incomparable in his Seva to Krishna. Indeed, he is Radha's maidservant. Ayanamani Manjari. This is the internal life of Bhakti Siddhanta. He saw himself as a handmaiden of Radha. This type of Madhurya Rasa. That is the highest ideal in Gaudiya Vaishnava, the main current of bhava in the Gaudiya Sampradaya. So many of our acharyas, all the Goswamis, and so all in Manjari Bhav. This kind of form of Madhurya Rasa, Radha Dasyam. So this was, of course, known to Prabhupada. He's telling Krishna that, Krishna, if Radharani is pleased with you, then your life will be successful. Now, my guru, who is very great, the great servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes from Navadvip. And if you come to the pearly gates of Goloka from Navadvip, and they say, where are you coming from? Now they just open the door. You're coming through Chaitanya, we'll come right in. No problem. They say, my guru, he's a great servant of the son of Sachi. And he is the Mahant Guru and the Jagat Guru of the whole world, he says. He's giving Krishna Bhakti everywhere. This is his position. He's saying, my Guru is a servant of Radharani, and your life is about pleasing Radharani. Okay. Then what? Tar icha balaban paschat jete than than koi jate golonger nam pitibiti nagadari asamugan nada nari sakale loi Krishna nam. So he's going to say what? He is empowered, or excuse me, my guru's empowered will is that there, here, there, and everywhere throughout the Western world, Gauranga Nam will be chanted. Across the world in all cities, rivers, oceans, and streams, everyone shall chant Krishna's name. Tahale Ananda Hoy, Tabe Hoy, Divijoy, Chaitanya Kripa Atishai. Maya Dushta Jataduki Jagate Savai Sukhi, Vaishnaver Icha Puna Hoy. Then, at that time, with such dispensation of Gauranganam, widespread, then there will be Ananda and victory all around, as the limitless mercy of Sri Chaitanya manifests and the corrupt and suffering souls in illusion become sukhi, happy, and the desire of all the Vaishnavas is fulfilled. Se karja jay kori bare ajsa jadi dilo more, jogya nahi anand dinhi. I se tomar kripa magiteche anurupa ajit tumi shabara proveen. On Radharani's behalf, parentheses, is the implication, my guru has given me the order to perform this task of distributing Gauranganam all over the world. And it's a formidable task. He says, but I'm not qualified, being lowly and fallen. Therefore, today, I'm begging for the kind of grace and empowerment appropriate for the task at hand, as you are the wisest of all. He says, I need some power to do this, to do the bidding of Radharani's servant, my Guru Maharaj. And remember, as I've said, if Radharani is pleased, your life will be successful. So he's asking, give me this power. This is a very charming way to talk to Krishna. Right? You can imagine how charmed he would be. You see, people approach Krishna for all kinds of things. They approach him for things, karma marg. They approach him to get away from things, jnana marg. They approach him because he's God, vaidhi marg. But hardly anybody approaches him just to hang out with him, just to be like his friends. You want to be like a gopi? You want to be like a gopa? You get this idea in mind. Now you have to know where you are to go there. That's another thing, what you have to do. But this idea in mind, this will attract Krishna's attention. If you want to be like a gopa, you want to be like a gopi, what are those gopis? What are those gopis, gopas? There's no Krishna without the gopis and gopas. He corresponds with their love. He's the object of love that they are the personification of. For love, you have to have both, right? You have to have the object of love and you have to have the love. This is a Chinta Veda Veda. How dear these are to Krishna, these people. You want to be like them? It's not a material desire. It's a desire to be so extremely selfless that there's not even any calculation in your worship of God that he's God, therefore he should be worshipped. They just love him. And they don't even care if he's God or not. This is Bhakti is very, very, very high. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving to the world, this opportunity. We should feel blessed by that. The Prabhupada is saying, oh, so Krishna, if Radharani is pleased, your life will be successful. And Radharani wants something of me, her representative, my guru, has asked, and it's a big task, I'm not qualified for it. But you should give me the Shakti, give me the power, the appropriate power. He's, in the words of the Bengali, he's asking for the appropriate power to do the work at hand. And if you give me that, well, my guru, who's represented Radharani, she'll be pleased. So Radharani is pleased, and your life will become perfect. This is very Braj Leela reasoning. And it could be shared with us. This is coming right out of Goloka Vrindavan. So charming, so beautiful, right? So he says, if I receive your Shakti, I'll be able to serve my Guru and attain that which is real. Then my life will be fulfilled. If I attain that service, I will become happy. And by good fortune, I will gain your association. So Prabhupada has prayed now in this first half of the song. He's for Guru Seva, surrender, give me the power to do the service of my Guru. You want to know how to please Krishna? Pray to him, give me the power to please my Guru. That's how I pray. It worked. It continues to work. And this is how Prabhupada is. I learned from Prabhupada. He's praying, Krishna, give me the power to serve my Guru. Krishna's only pleasure derives from the pleasure of his devotees. And that's why Vaishnavas are important. They're important to Krishna. They should be important to us. So if I receive the power, the Shakti, then what he's saying now, Prabhupada has prayed in supplication, in Sharanagati, and in a beautiful way, and very feelingly. He's built the stage in this poem of Sharanagati. Now he's going to start to long. And having accomplished that, if you give me the power and I can accomplish that, then I want something of you. I want to unite with you. In what way? A way that is, well, first of all, we have to think, was Prabhupada's prayer and supplication successful? Did he get the power? What was the appropriate power? Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj said, I consider what he has done, it is like Shakti Avesh, empowered. And we asked, Guru Maharaj, there are different types of empowerment. Gyan Shakti, Vyas, Bhakti Shakti, Nard, Palana Shakti, Pritu. What kind of empowerment? And he said, Nityananda Vesh, empowerment of Nityananda Prabhu. Right? What is that empowerment for? What was he empowered to do? Widespread circulation to the downtrodden, far beyond where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go as a sannyasi, because if he went there, his character would be in question. Nityananda went there. To the downtrodden, the fallen people. Mahaprabhu spoke to the Brahmins, educated people. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Prakasana Saraswati, Venkata. But to get to the fallen people, even in this famous saying is, if you see Nityananda in a brothel talking to a prostitute, you should think he's only there on behalf of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to liberate them. This is Nityananda Avadut. Everybody in Panchatattva is special and perfect and the best. But this is, each one has a quality by which we can support that. This is the quality of Nityananda Prabhu. It's very dear to us. What is our position? Me, at least. The Prabhupada's calling himself Father. What does big of us? And so Nityananda Vesh, coming from and this is his family lineage also says that we're much attached to Nityananda Prabhu. So we have to, we don't have, did he get it? Did Krishna fulfill his? Well, we are all the evidence of that, right? So he was successful. So his prayer was earnest. His attempt to establish the stage of Sharanagati was real and sincere, which is all we really need, a full measure of our sincerity. Now therefore, he can long, so he does. And what does he say? The prayer turns to Bhava Bhakti, right? He says, Tumi mor chitta sati, muliya maya lati, kaya chit janma janman thare, ajipuna eshu jog jadi hoy joga jog, tava pare umhe mile bare. You are my eternal friend, but I have forgotten you. I have endured the kicking of Maya, birth after birth. Again, if today the chance to meet you occurs, truly I will be able to attain you. Tomara milane bhai, abar se shukapai, vocharani guri din bor, patavani chuta chuti, bani kai lutaputi, che din kobe hobe more. Oh brother, when will the day be mine when I will meet you again and attain the happiness of herding cows, wandering through the pastures from early morn throughout the entire day, running and frolicking through the many forests of Braj, tumbling on the ground in playful sport. This is Sakyabha. These are the Anubhavs, Sadharani Anubhav, the Anubhavs of all the types of sakas. They're all doing this. Each group does different types of things also. This is in common they have. They're very, in the language, it sounds like it's very playful. Kotta bani chutta chuti bani kai lutta puti. He's longing for this, to enter into this. And then he says what? Aji se subidhane tomar shmarana bela baro asha dokhilam thai. Ami tomar nityadas thai kori eta ash. Tumi bina anya gati nai. So he says, today in Smaranam, you came to me in a very nice way. This Smaranam is an important limb of bhakti and rag bhakti. It arises out of kirtan. Out of kirtan, kirtana prabhave smarana svabhava. The power of kirtan will bring about meditation in due course. The mind will be arrested. And when you finish the kirtan, you will go and you'll go into samadhi. And you'll come out. After a while, keep doing that. One day you will come out. He says, today in Samaranam, he came to me, subidhane, in a very nice way. Aji said, on this day, subidhane, in a very nice way, tomar smarana vela, he came to me. And because I have a great hope, I called out to you. I am your Nityadas, and thus I hold this hope. Without you, there is no other refuge for me. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this is a big wave of Sakyabha. This is just a little bit of an insight into the internal engine, if you will, spiritual engine that drove Prabhupada's campaign. And I'm happy to have the opportunity to share it with you. As I mentioned, we have a small book about it. All other such further evidences, I encourage you to look into it. Thank you very much. Gaur Premanande. So, any question? Pardon me? What did he say? I couldn't hear. Why? Why what? Why shouldn't you eat apples? Because you haven't offered them to Krishna. Because once you eat them, you'll never stop?
The analogy, Guru Maharaj,
Yeah.
The taste, the apple and the aroma.
Yeah. Well, here's a question. Why shouldn't you read the Bhagavatam? The Bhagavatam is Nigama Kalpataro Galitam Palam Shukumukaramat Drabhasamritam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhubi Bhagavatam. He says, because if you read the Bhagavatam, alayam, you will pass out. Therefore, you shouldn't read the Bhagavatam. But if you do read the Bhagavatam and pass out, what will you do when you get up? You will read the Bhagavatam again, right? You will taste that food again. Thank you very much. Anything else? Yes.
I was going to ask you one day, I don't want to go back to things like cooking up, but from what I've heard or read, seems to be go-to pastime so that you can adapt to that way of being.
Yes. So there's two leelas. Yeah, there's two basic leelas, Prakat Leela, the manifest Leela, and the Aprakat Leela. The former, the Prakat Leela, is largely speaking characterized by separation. Aprakat Leela, the mountain manifest, is largely characterized by union. That's a basic idea. Now the Prakat Leela, Prakat means manifest, but it also means the best. So relatively speaking, we will think it's the best because the Prakat Leela is like a trailer in movie terminology, to the actual movie, the ongoing movie. So we get a little experience of it. It's written about in the Bhagavatam and so forth. And so we get a little taste of it. It's that Leela, the meditation of Vyasa, is put into poetry and text and so forth. And so the book itself is the Prakat Leela. The Bhagavad itself says that it is the Prakat Leela that extends and remains on earth even after Krishna personally departs. So we should take advantage of the Bhagavad and learn the Prakat Leela on the one hand. Then the idea is this, that when the Prakat Leela manifests, well, Krishna manifests along with his associates. Right? And when we develop prem in this world, I'll give you an example. In my country, I don't know how it works here, but in our country, there are professional sports. And the professional sports, they get new teammates from the colleges. So they have like a draft. And best students in college, best football players, they get drafted into the big leagues, into the professional leagues, right? In the professional league, it's just like the college league, but it moves faster because everybody's the best there, right? So they were the best in one school, but now they're in the professional league, and everybody was from the best from their school. So the game is the same, but it's moving a little faster, and there are things to be developed in practice that can only be done by just getting on the field, right? So the Prakat Leela serves like that, because in the Braj Leela, the prem is intensified relative to the particular rasa in stages like sneha, man, pranay, rag, anurag, mahabhav. These are technical terms. We could explain them to some extent, but Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says they can only be really understood by entering the Prakat Leela and associating with the Nityasiddha associates of Krishna who have that full development. So you get drafted, and then you go to the Prakat Leela, and they're in that association. Therefore, we see, for example, what happened. In the Rasa Leela, Krishna called the gopis, right? Some of them couldn't come, right? They were held back. These are sadhana siddhas. They had perfected themselves by practice, and now they entered the Prakat Leela. But there was still some further development. And the separation that was caused on the night of the Rasa Leela didn't allow them to go, plus subsequently association with the other gopis, allowed them to develop fully. And then that's described later in my 42nd or 43rd chapter when Uddhava comes to Vrindavan, if you study it carefully. So this is an example, right? That's the purpose of the Prakat Leela. Right. Yes.
What is the base? Any devotee is there, he want to serve his Guru Maharaj. What are the different ways?
You want to know how we can serve our Guru? There are a couple of ways.
Yes.
One way is this. You see, Guru Seva is an anga, a limb of the angi, the body of Krishna Bhakti. So Krishna Bhakti is the body, has many limbs, like Shravanam is a limb, Kirtanam is a limb, and so forth. Guru Seva is also a limb of Bhakti. Therefore, when Rupa Goswami begins to explain Bhakti, the first limb that he says is, that he gives is Guru Padashraya. Take shelter of the Guru. Siksha Dikshadi, get Siksha, you hear, you get inspired, you get captured by the Siksha, an example of the Guru, then she gives you Diksha. So Guru Bhakti is a limb of the body of Krishna Bhakti. So What does Guru Seva then? Well, the Guru is representing Krishna, and he's teaching how to serve Krishna. So when we engage in the other angas of bhakti, our Krishna bhakti, is also service to the Guru. That's what he wants us to do. This is what he wants. The Guru is said to be representing Krishna. He's teaching how to serve Krishna. I want to see that my students are serving Krishna. That they're chanting the mantra that I've given them, they're taking advantage of, they're paying attention, so forth. I want to see that they're learning the philosophy relative to the intellectual, capacity that they have. They don't have to be scholars or anything, but it's your intelligence should be fully exercised, your senses, your body. So you want to see that they're engaged. This is the first thing. Therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on the Gita verse where it's mentioned Vyavasatmika Buddha, Vyavasatmika Buddhi, right? Yeah, okay, yeah. So he said, what does Vyavasatmika Buddhi mean? One-minded intelligence. He says that Yasya Prasada, Bhagavat Prasado. This is this one-minded intelligence. Focus on the Guru, who's a representative of Krishna. Learn from Krishna, him or her, Krishna Bhakti, right? So everybody does that. Now, there may be other opportunities to have some personal service to the Guru, right? So that depends where you live, where your Guru is, and so on and so forth. And that, if you live in proximity to the Guru, then there may be opportunity to book with the Guru, or any such things, right? Or then you may ask your Guru, Guru Maharaj, how can I serve you? And this is what Prabhupada did, because Prabhupada lived outside of the mop, outside of the mission, the household. We had 5 children. He wrote to Bhaktisiddhanta Guru Maharaj, how can I serve you? Can I have some personal service, aside from the service of hearing, chanting that the Guru was teaching, right? And Bhaktisiddhanta wrote him back, said, I think it would be good if you preach in English. But Prabhupada used to say, my Guru Maharaj ordered me to preach in English. That's how he took it. So you ask your Guru. That's easy, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
very well.
It's a simple idea. I mean, he may give you some, he may just say, here and chant, and give you some. Anyway, if you want to do that, your life is successful. Just your question is success. You understand? You have the courage and enthusiasm and sincerity to ask, help me, give me a hint, how can I serve my Guru? You're doing it, that's good. Understand? All right, so I think we've talked for a long time. We can have some prasadam, right? And Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Bhakti Vinod Paribar ki jai. Some water.
Just like to let everybody know that any of Swami Bhaktivedanta Tripurari's books are outside. He referenced some of them just on the book table outside. And we've got prasad be served. And as Lokcham Prabhu said earlier on, we have this meeting every week on a Friday. So do come along 7 till 10, 10:30. And yeah, thank you for joining us.
Haribo.
Haribo.
Is there any more light in here?
Not yet.
Put more light on? Let there be light. And I would have turned it on earlier, I think, if I had known. I would have had the light turn on earlier if I had known, I think.
Sorry.
Yeah, there you are. Okay, now I can see you. Very good. There you go.